All right, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
You sent us some really fascinating stuff about SORA.
Uh-huh.
This cryptocurrency designed to fuel a decentralized economy.
Okay.
We've got excerpts from SORA's own introduction, a pretty heady white paper, and even a talk by economist Richard Werner,
Right.
who, let's just say,
Yeah.
has some strong opinions about traditional finance.
He definitely does not hold back.
It looks like you're interested in getting past the jargon and really understanding how SORA works and what it might mean for the future of money.
For sure.
You're also interested in how all this ties into the bigger picture of economics
Yeah.
and growth.
Absolutely.
Buckle up, because this deep dive is going to be a wild ride.
It is.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's kick off with Professor Werner's
Okay.
provocative claim that economic growth, as we understand it, is a complete illusion.
It's a big one.
Did I get that right?
Yeah, that's the gist of it. He dives into the history of the concept, arguing that it was basically a tool invented by bankers way back when to figure out how much interest they could charge on loans to governments.
So not really about the well-being of people or progress in general.
Not exactly.
Okay.
Werner says real growth comes from creating new goods and services,
Right.
not just shuffling existing assets around or inflating their prices.
Okay.
He introduces this idea called the quantity theory of disaggregated credit, which sounds intimidating, but is actually pretty straightforward.
Okay, break that down for me.
Sure.
Disaggregated credit, what does that even mean?
Think of it like this.
Okay.
Imagine you're baking a pie.
Right.
Real economic growth is like baking a bigger pie, so there's more for everyone to enjoy. But what often happens in our current system is that instead of baking a bigger pie, we just cut the existing pie into smaller and smaller slices, or inflate the price of each slice.
So we're not actually creating more.
Right.
Just playing around with what we already have.
Exactly. And that's a big problem, according to Werner.
Oh.
It leads to all sorts of distortions in the economy.
Okay, I'm starting to see where he's going with this.
Yeah.
But how does SORA fit into all of this?
Well, SORA aims to change the game by redirecting money towards the real economy,
Okay.
the part that actually produces goods and services,
Right.
using a decentralized system powered by XOR.
So instead of just slicing and dicing the same pie,
Yeah,
SORA wants to bake a whole new one.
I got it.
Okay.
It's about creating a system that incentivizes real growth,
Right.
not just financial manipulation.
All right. I'm intrigued.
Yeah,
Werner also had some pretty explosive things to say about banks.
he did.
He basically claims they create money out of thin air.
Yeah.
I always thought of them as this giant vault where my money sits until I need it.
It's a common misconception.
Okay.
Werner argues that banks don't actually lend out existing deposits. They create new money through the act of lending itself.
Really?
It's a bit like magic,
Ah.
but with serious consequences for how our economy works.
Hold on. So
Yeah.
if I deposit $100 in the bank, they can just create more money based on that.
In essence, yes.
Wow.
They can use that $100 as the basis for creating new loans,
Okay.
which in turn create new deposits.
So the money I think I have in my account
Right.
isn't really there.
Well, it's complicated.
Right.
It's not that the money doesn't exist,
Right.
but it's more like a promise
Okay.
based on the bank's ability to create new money through lending.
Okay. This is seriously warping my brain.
It is a mind bender.
But I can see how this could be a problem,
Yeah.
especially if banks have too much power to create money and influence the economy.
That's exactly Werner's point.
Okay.
He argues that the system is far too centralized,
Right.
giving a small group of institutions enormous power over the money supply.
Okay.
And that power can be abused,
Right.
leading to economic instability, inequality, and even political control.
That doesn't sound good.
It's not, and it sets the stage for understanding why a system like SORA might be appealing.
Okay.
It aims to create a more decentralized and democratic system where the power to create and allocate money is distributed more broadly.
Okay, so we've got economic illusions and banks playing financial wizardry.
Yeah.
This is a lot to process.
It is.
But it lays the groundwork for understanding the need for a new approach.
Right.
One that SORA is trying to provide.
Exactly.
So let's talk about SORA itself.
Okay.
How does it propose to fix these problems?
That's where XOR comes in.
Okay.
It's the cryptocurrency that powers this whole ecosystem.
Right.
And it's designed to be very different from what we're used to.
Okay.
Think of XOR as the bridge that connects islands of value in a decentralized world.
Okay, I'm listening.
Yeah.
How does a bridge relate to a cryptocurrency?
It's all about facilitating the flow of value.
Okay.
Each island represents a different part of the economy, maybe a business,
Okay.
a project,
Right.
or even a government initiative. These islands need a way to connect and exchange value.
Right.
And that's where XOR comes in.
So XOR is like the common language that all these different islands can use to trade and interact.
Exactly.
Okay.
And what makes XOR unique is that it's designed to be used by countries to fuel economic growth in a way that traditional currencies can't.
Right.
It offers a way to break free from the centralized control of banks and governments.
Now we're getting into the really interesting stuff.
Yeah.
But before we get lost in the details,
Okay.
let's take a step back.
Sure.
What's the big picture vision here? What kind of world is SORA trying to create?
It's a world where money is no longer a tool for control,
Right.
and a tool for empowerment.
Okay.
It's a world where communities have more control over their own economies, and where individuals have more freedom to participate in a fair and transparent financial system.
That sounds pretty utopian.
It does.
But is it realistic?
That's what we're here to explore.
Okay.
SORA offers a bold vision, and it's going to be fascinating to see how it plays out in the real world.
All right, I'm ready to dive deeper.
Okay.
Let's unpack the specifics of how this all works.
Yeah.
Starting with this token bonding curve thing.
Okay.
That sounds pretty complex.
Don't worry, we'll break it down step by step and make it easy to understand.
Okay.
It's actually a very clever mechanism that sets SORA apart from other cryptocurrencies.
Let's hear it.
The token bonding curve is like a self-adjusting system that helps keep the value of XOR stable. It's an algorithm that constantly adjusts the price of XOR based on how much is being bought and sold.
So if demand for XOR goes up, the price goes up and vice versa.
Exactly. And to keep things balanced.
Right.
The system automatically creates more XOR when demand is high and destroys some XOR when demand is low.
Okay.
This helps prevent the wild price fluctuations that we see with other cryptocurrencies,
Right.
like Bitcoin,
Okay.
which can make them less useful for everyday transactions.
Okay, that makes sense. Stability is definitely important if people are going to actually use XOR for things like buying groceries or paying their bills.
Absolutely.
Okay.
SORA is designed to be a real-world currency, not just a speculative asset.
Right.
It's about creating a system that's both stable and accessible for everyone.
This is fascinating stuff.
It is.
So we've got a cryptocurrency that's designed to fuel real economic growth, a system that challenges the power of traditional banks,
Right.
and this clever token bonding curve that keeps everything stable.
Yeah.
My mind is officially blown.
It's a lot to take in.
And we're just getting started.
We are.
There's a lot more to uncover as we dive into the details of how SORA's governance system works,
Absolutely.
how projects get funded,
Right.
and how this all fits into the bigger picture of a decentralized economy.
It's going to be a wild ride.
This is going to be quite the deep dive.
It is.
But before we get into all that, I think it's important to address the elephant in the room,
Okay.
El Salvador.
Right.
They went all in on Bitcoin,
They did.
and it hasn't exactly been smooth sailing, right?
That's a great point.
Okay.
El Salvador's experiment provides a valuable case study,
Okay.
both in terms of the potential and the pitfalls of adopting cryptocurrencies on a national level.
Okay.
It's a cautionary tale that highlights the importance of choosing the right tool for the job and understanding the complexities involved.
Okay, let's unpack that.
Sure.
What happened in El Salvador?
Well, on the surface,
Yeah.
it seemed like a bold and innovative move.
Right.
They adopted Bitcoin as legal tender,
Right.
hoping to attract investment, boost financial inclusion,
Right.
and break free from the constraints of the traditional financial system.
And it made headlines all over the world.
It did.
People were calling it a revolution in finance.
It generated a lot of buzz.
Yeah.
But the reality on the ground has been more complicated.
Okay.
Bitcoin, with its fixed supply and its inherent volatility, has proven to be a rather challenging currency to manage on a national scale.
So the price swings have created a lot of uncertainty for businesses and individuals.
Exactly. And because the supply of Bitcoin is fixed,
Right.
it can't be easily adjusted to meet the needs of a growing economy.
Right.
This is one of the key differences between Bitcoin and SORA.
Okay.
SORA's token bonding curve allows for a more flexible supply,
Right.
which is crucial for a currency that's meant to fuel real economic growth.
So El Salvador might have been a bit too quick to jump on the Bitcoin bandwagon?
It's easy to say that in hindsight.
Right.
They were pioneers, and they took a big risk.
Yeah.
While their experiment hasn't been without its challenges,
Okay.
it has provided valuable lessons for other countries considering adopting cryptocurrencies.
Right.
And those lessons are directly relevant to understanding the potential of SORA.
Okay, I'm getting the sense that this deep dive is going to be a real eye-opener.
It is.
We're talking about challenging fundamental assumptions about money, exploring the potential of a radical new economic model, and grappling with the complexities of real-world implementation.
Yeah.
This is going to be a wild ride.
It is, and it all starts with understanding the core concepts.
Right.
We've laid the groundwork, but there's so much more to explore.
Okay.
In the next part of our deep dive, we'll get into the specifics of SORA's governance system,
Okay.
the role of the community in decision-making,
Right.
how this all ties back to Professor Werner's vision of a decentralized financial future.
This is getting me really excited to see where this all leads.
Yeah.
I can't wait to unpack the next layer of this puzzle.
Let's do it.
Okay.
The future of money is waiting.
Oh, right. Yeah. So, Professor Werner doesn't just critique the current system.
Right.
He points to historical examples
Yeah.
to illustrate his points.
That's right. We were about to get into his analysis of the Soviet Union's centralized economy.
Exactly. He argues that the Soviet Union's top-down economic model ultimately failed because it stifled innovation.
When the government controls every aspect of production and distribution, there's no room for individuals to experiment, take risks, and come up with new ideas.
So even though their intention might have been to create a more equal society,
Yeah.
the lack of individual initiative ended up backfiring.
That's the irony, isn't it?
Yeah.
The system became incredibly inefficient and ultimately unsustainable.
Okay.
Werner draws a parallel between the Soviet experience and the centralized control we see in our current financial system. He suggests that this concentration of power in the hands of central banks can have similar stifling effects.
Interesting. So even though we might not have government committees dictating exactly what gets produced,
Right.
the way money is created and controlled can still lead to a kind of economic stagnation.
That's the argument.
Right.
When a small group of institutions has so much influence over the flow of money,
Right.
they can effectively pick winners and losers in the economy,
Right.
favoring certain industries or projects while starving others of capital.
Okay, I see how that could stifle innovation and create all sorts of unfair advantages. Werner also brought up the 2008 financial crisis.
Yeah.
How does that fit into this narrative of centralized control?
He argues that the 2008 crisis was a direct result of central banks and other powerful institutions, creating too much money and directing it towards risky investments.
Right.
Specifically, he points to the housing bubble,
Yeah.
where easy credit fueled a massive run-up in prices, creating a situation ripe for collapse.
So too much money chasing too few assets.
Exactly.
Classic bubble territory.
Exactly. And when the bubble burst,
Right.
it triggered a cascade of defaults and losses,
Yeah.
ultimately leading to a global financial meltdown.
Wow.
Werner's point is that the very institutions that are supposed to be stabilizing the economy can actually create the conditions for instability.
That's a pretty damning indictment of the current system.
It is.
But if centralized control is so problematic,
Yeah.
what's the alternative?
Right.
Werner briefly mentioned Germany's community banks
Yeah.
as a positive example of a more decentralized system, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
He holds them up as a model for how things could be different.
Okay.
These banks are typically small, locally owned, and deeply embedded in their communities.
Right.
Their lending decisions are based on personal relationships and a deep understanding of local needs,
Okay.
rather than abstract financial models.
So they're more focused on Main Street than Wall Street.
Exactly.
Right.
And because these community banks are not part of a giant interconnected financial system,
Right.
they're less exposed to systemic risks. In fact, Werner points out that many of them weathered the 2008 crisis quite well,
Oh, wow.
precisely because their lending practices were more prudent and less driven by speculation.
Interesting. So he sees community banks as a more stable and equitable foundation for the financial system.
Yes, he believes that decentralizing the financial system would make it more resilient,
Okay.
more responsive to the needs of ordinary people, and less prone to booms and busts.
Okay, I'm starting to see the connection back to SORA.
Yeah.
It's all about decentralization and empowering communities.
Exactly.
But is it really realistic to think we can shift away from this massive centralized system that's been built up over centuries?
Right.
I mean, the big banks and central banks wield so much power.
They do.
how do you even begin to challenge that?
It's definitely a David and Goliath situation.
Yeah.
But Werner is optimistic that change is possible.
Okay.
He sees the growing interest in cryptocurrencies and decentralized finance as a sign that people are hungry for alternatives. They're looking for ways to break free from the constraints of the current system and take control of their own financial destinies.
That brings us back to SORA and its vision of a more democratic and decentralized financial future.
Right.
But I have to play devil's advocate here.
Sure.
We've talked a lot about the potential benefits of decentralization.
Yeah.
But what about the risks? Aren't there potential downsides to consider as well?
Absolutely.
Right.
Every system has its trade-offs.
Right.
With decentralization, one concern is that it could lead to fragmentation and a lack of coordination.
Right.
If everyone is doing their own thing,
Okay.
it might be harder to address large-scale economic challenges that require collective action.
Yeah.
Think about things like infrastructure projects
Okay.
or responding to a financial crisis.
Right.
Those require a certain level of centralized authority.
That's a good point. What about security?
Yeah.
If there's no central authority overseeing things,
Right.
doesn't that make the system more vulnerable to fraud, hacks, or other malicious activity?
Security is paramount,
Right.
and that's a valid concern.
Okay.
Decentralized systems do present unique challenges, but they also offer unique solutions.
Okay.
With SORA, security is built into the very fabric of the system through blockchain technology.
Okay, so remind me how blockchain works and why it's supposed to be so secure.
Think of blockchain as a distributed ledger, a digital record of transactions that's replicated across a network of computers.
Right.
It's like having thousands of copies of the same book, all constantly being updated and verified.
Okay.
To tamper with one copy,
Yeah.
you'd have to tamper with all of them simultaneously, which is practically impossible.
So it's like a giant decentralized security system.
Exactly.
Right.
And because there's no single point of failure,
Right.
blockchain is incredibly resistant to hacks and fraud.
Right.
Of course, no system is foolproof,
Right.
but blockchain represents a significant leap forward in terms of security.
Okay, I'm starting to get the picture.
Yeah.
But even if we can address the technical and security challenges,
Right.
there's still the hurdle of adoption. How do you convince people to actually use a new system?
Yeah.
Especially one that's so different from what they're used to.
That's the billion-dollar question.
Yeah.
Adoption is key to the success of any new technology.
Right.
And it's particularly challenging when it comes to something as fundamental as money. People are creatures of habit,
Right.
and they tend to be resistant to change,
Right.
especially when it comes to their finances.
So how does SORA plan to overcome this inertia and get people on board?
Well, the white paper doesn't go into great detail about specific marketing or adoption strategies,
Okay.
but it emphasizes the importance of community building and education.
Right.
The idea is to create a grassroots movement of people who understand the potential of SORA
Okay.
and are excited to be part of a more equitable and democratic financial system.
So it's about more than just building a cool technology.
Yeah.
It's about fostering a sense of shared purpose and empowering individuals to take control of their financial futures.
Exactly. It's
Okay.
about creating a movement,
Right.
not just a product.
That's a powerful idea.
It is.
And it seems like there's a growing appetite for this kind of change.
Yeah,
People are increasingly disillusioned with the current system.
they are.
They're looking for alternatives that offer more transparency, fairness, and control. And SORA provides a compelling vision for that alternative.
Absolutely.
It's a vision that resonates with Professor Werner's critique of centralized finance and his call for a more decentralized and community-driven system.
Exactly.
All right, I'm convinced SORA is tackling some really big issues and offering a bold vision for a different kind of financial future.
It is.
But I still have a lot of questions about the nuts and bolts of how this all works.
Sure.
I'm particularly interested in the token bonding curve
Okay.
and how the governance system operates.
Great questions.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what we'll be diving into in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay.
We'll unpack the mechanics of the token bonding curve,
Okay.
explore how the community makes decisions through voting,
Right.
and examine the real-world implications of this radical new approach to finance.
I'm ready to get into the weeds.
Let's do it.
All right, my brain is primed and ready. Let's get into the nuts and bolts of SORA,
Yeah.
specifically this token bonding curve. It sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie.
It does.
What is it, and why is it so important for Zarsaran?
It might sound complex,
Okay.
but the concept is pretty intuitive once you break it down.
Okay.
Remember our analogy of XOR as a bridge,
Yeah.
connecting islands of value?
Yeah, I'm picturing a whole archipelago of economic activity,
Right.
each island representing a different project or venture.
Exactly.
Okay.
Now, imagine each of these islands needs a way to raise capital
Right.
and interact with the broader SORA economy.
Okay.
That's where the token bonding curve comes into play.
So it's like a fundraising mechanism.
It's more than that. It's a
Okay.
fundamental mechanism that governs the supply and price of XOR.
Okay.
Think of it like a self-adjusting thermostat that keeps the temperature in a room stable.
Okay. I'm intrigued.
Mm-hmm.
How does a thermostat relate to a cryptocurrency?
The token bonding curve is essentially an algorithm that constantly adjusts the price of XOR based on how much is being bought and sold. If demand for XOR goes up, the price goes up.
Right. And the algorithm automatically creates more XOR to meet that demand.
So it's like a built-in supply and demand regulator.
Exactly.
Okay.
And if demand for XOR goes down, the price goes down.
Right.
And the algorithm destroys some XOR to reduce the supply.
Mm-hmm.
This self-adjusting mechanism is designed to prevent the kind of wild price swings that we see with other cryptocurrencies.
Okay. I see how stability would be important.
Right.
Especially if SORA is aiming to be a real-world currency for everyday transactions.
Precisely.
Oh.
You don't want the price of your groceries fluctuating wildly from day to day.
Right.
The token bonding curve is one of the key innovations that sets SORA apart and makes it a more viable option for a decentralized economy.
This is making a lot more sense now.
Okay.
But I'm still curious about the governance aspect.
Okay.
How does SORA ensure that decisions are made in a fair and transparent way? Who's in control here?
That's the beauty of it. No single entity is in control.
SORA is designed to be a truly decentralized system where the power is distributed among the community of XOR holders.
Right.
They get to decide how the system evolves.
So it's like a digital democracy where everyone gets a vote.
You got it.
Okay.
Every XOR holder has a say in how the system is run.
Right.
They can vote on proposals, elect representatives, and participate in the decision-making process.
Okay.
This ensures that no one person or group has too much power.
That's a pretty radical departure from the way traditional financial systems work.
It is.
Can you give me an example of how this governance system might play out in practice?
Sure.
Okay.
Imagine the SORA community wants to fund a new project.
Okay.
Maybe building a solar farm or developing a new educational platform.
Yeah.
Someone in the community would propose the project,
Right.
outlining the details, the budget, and the potential benefits.
And then what happens?
Yeah.
Does everyone get to vote on it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
The proposal would be put up for a vote, and all XOR holders would have the opportunity to weigh in.
Okay.
If the proposal receives enough support from the community,
Yeah.
the project gets funded from the SORA treasury.
So it's like crowdfunding on a massive scale,
Yeah,
but with a built-in democratic process.
that's a good way to put it.
Okay.
It's a way to ensure that funding decisions are made in a transparent and accountable way,
Right.
reflecting the priorities of the community,
Okay.
rather than the interests of a select few.
This is all incredibly fascinating.
Yeah,
But I have to admit,
sure.
I'm still a bit skeptical.
Okay,
It all sounds a bit too good to be true.
that's fair.
Are there any real-world examples of decentralized governance systems working effectively?
That's a fair question.
Yeah.
While SORA is still relatively new,
Oh,
there are examples of decentralized governance models working in other contexts.
okay.
Think about open source software projects like
Yep.
Linux or Wikipedia. They're developed and maintained through communities of volunteers who collaborate and make decisions collectively
Right.
without any central authority dictating what they can or can't do.
Okay, I see the analogy.
Yeah.
But those are software projects, not financial systems.
Right.
It seems like the stakes are much higher when you're dealing with people's money.
You're right.
Yeah.
The stakes are high.
Right.
And that's why SORA is designed with multiple layers of security and transparency.
Right.
The blockchain itself provides a permanent and tamper-proof record of all transactions.
Right.
And the governance system ensures that decisions are made through a democratic process.
Right.
Of course, there are risks involved with any new system,
Sure.
but the potential rewards of a more equitable and decentralized financial system are enormous.
This has been an incredible deep dive.
Yeah.
We've covered so much ground.
We have.
From challenging conventional economic thinking
Yeah.
to exploring the intricacies of a radical new financial model.
It's been a journey.
My brain is buzzing.
Good, I hope in a good way.
So what's the final takeaway for our listener? What should they be thinking about after this deep dive?
I think the key question is this.
Okay.
Are we ready for a paradigm shift in how we think about money and the economy? SORA and other projects like it are challenging the status quo.
Right.
And offering a glimpse into a future where power is more evenly distributed and where individuals have more control over their financial destinies.
Those are big questions, and there are no easy answers.
No.
But one thing is clear.
What's that?
The future of money is being written right now.
It is.
And it's up to all of us to be informed, engaged, and ready to participate in shaping that future.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
Okay.
Keep exploring, right? Keep learning, and keep asking questions. The future is waiting to be built.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of SORA.
Absolutely.
It's been a fascinating journey, and I'm sure we'll be hearing a lot more about decentralized finance in the years to come.
I think so.
Until next time, stay curious.